Hey guys, tonight we wander back in time to a misty, pre-Common Era China, where the air feels thick with unseen presences, and the boundary between the living and the dead blurs under a pale moon. You probably wouldn't survive long here without the proper rituals. Ghosts, after all, were believed to roam freely, hungry and restless, ready to stir trouble for anyone who forgot to honor them. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to drop your location and local time in the comments. I love imagining all the different places you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The origins of what we now call the Ghost Festival are shrouded in the kind of fog that makes even modern historians scratch their heads. Long before the Common Era, ancient Chinese communities noticed that certain times of year felt different. Shadows lingered longer, and eerie sounds slipped through the bamboo groves. The earliest hints suggest a festival emerging from local beliefs in wandering spirits, especially those of ancestors who might have been forgotten or who died violently. Some early texts hint that these souls were thought to be particularly restless during the 7th lunar month, when the gates between worlds were said to open. You probably wouldn't want to be alone at night during that time. Ancient folks believed spirits could cause illness or misfortune if neglected. The idea was simple: respect the dead, and they'd stay calm. Forget them, and you deal with their grumpy hauntings. Archaeologists still debate whether these early ghost festivals were separate events or part of broader ancestor worship ceremonies. Either way, the growing cultural importance of honoring spirits helped knit communities together, weaving a shared fabric of stories and customs that passed from village to village. Interestingly, some scholars suggest that what began as a small, local ritual evolved over centuries, absorbing elements from Taoist and Buddhist traditions as those philosophies spread into China. You might say the Ghost Festival is a bit like a slow stew, each new idea simmering in and adding flavor over time. So as you settle in tonight, imagine ancient villages gathering quietly, their breath visible in the cool air, preparing to greet the spirits that would soon walk among them. It's a mixture of respect, fear, and a touch of humor, because, really, who wouldn't find the idea of grumpy ghosts a bit amusing in hindsight? You step softly into the world of ancient Chinese spirit beliefs, where life and death are more like neighbors sharing a thin, sometimes creaky fence than separate realms locked behind gates. Back then, the idea of the afterlife wasn't a fixed, orderly place like the modern imagination might suggest. Instead, it was a hazy, somewhat chaotic realm where souls could wander, sometimes lost, sometimes angry, and often surprisingly busy meddling in the affairs of the living. In the early Chinese worldview, spirits were everywhere. Ancestors, naturally, held a special place. They were like family CEOs watching over the clan's welfare. But there were also the less fortunate ghosts, those who died without proper rites, or whose deaths were sudden or violent. These hungry ghosts roamed in search of attention and offerings. Imagine a ghost with the social skills of a clingy ex. Ignore them, and you might face their wrath, which could range from mild mischief like causing nightmares to more serious troubles like sickness or bad luck. One curious belief from that era is that ghosts had specific needs much like the living: food, drink, even entertainment. That's why people left out elaborate meals or burned paper versions of goods, hoping to appease these invisible guests. Archaeologists still debate whether all these offerings were practical gifts for the dead or symbolic acts meant more for comforting the living and maintaining social order. You'd probably find it odd that the ancient Chinese thought spirits could travel along the roadways of the living world, especially during the 7th lunar month when the Ghost Gate was said to open. It's like the veil between worlds became a revolving door, and all sorts of souls took advantage of the brief freedom. To protect themselves, families would perform rituals designed to soothe these spirits and keep the community safe. Some even believed that certain animals, like dogs or birds, could sense ghosts better than humans, so if your dog suddenly stared at nothing, you might want to pay attention. The sensory world around you hums with subtle signals, faint smells of burning incense, the crackle of paper offerings in the fire, the soft murmur of prayers drifting into the night. All these small acts create a protective atmosphere, a kind of spiritual buffer against misfortune. It's a strange, gentle dance between the living and the dead, and you can't help but feel the deep human desire to connect across that divide, even if the method seems a bit quirky to modern ears. As the ancient lunar calendar turns toward late summer, the timing of the Ghost Festival begins to make more sense, and maybe a bit less spooky. The 7th lunar month, usually falling around August in the Gregorian calendar, marks a season when nature itself seems to whisper secrets. Cicadas buzz relentlessly, their rhythmic song filling the thick, humid air, while shadows lengthen under a soft moonlight that bathes the land in a ghostly glow. You'd probably want to pull your blanket tighter around your shoulders, not just because of the night chill, but because this time of year carries a special kind of restless energy. Interestingly, the 7th month's timing may have practical roots as well. Ancient agricultural cycles meant that late summer was a busy harvest period, but also a time when food supplies could run low and illness spread more easily. Some scholars suggest that the festival's focus on appeasing spirits and honoring the dead was a way to psychologically cope with the uncertainties and hardships of this season. After all, if your crops failed or sickness swept through your village, you might wonder if the ancestors were displeased. The cicadas, loud as they are, add a curious soundtrack to the night. Some early Chinese texts even describe their calls as voices of the departed, making their incessant chirping a kind of natural chorus for the festival. The link between insects and spirits is a small but charming detail that brings to life the ancients' delicate blending of nature and the supernatural. You might imagine sitting outside a modest hut, the warm breeze carrying those tiny cries while families light lanterns that flicker in time with the chorus. The moon, too, plays a starring role. Unlike the bright, bustling celebrations of the Mid-Autumn Festival, the Ghost Festival's moonlight is softer, more muted, reflecting the somber mood. Lanterns floating on rivers and ponds capture this gentle glow, creating an ethereal spectacle that's equal parts calming and slightly eerie. Archaeologists still debate whether the timing was fixed from the start or gradually settled as people noticed these natural rhythms. So, here you are, feeling the damp air cling to your skin and hearing cicadas sing their unending song. This peculiar season blends practical concerns with supernatural beliefs, and that mix has shaped the Ghost Festival's timing ever since. You can almost smell the incense mingling with earth and water, a fragrant reminder that the living and the dead are sharing this late summer night. You're now standing just outside an ancient village, somewhere in pre-Common Era China, as twilight settles in. The houses are low and earthy, with wooden beams and tiled roofs, and the scent of rice porridge and burning mugwort drifts through the air. The day's work has ended, and tonight isn't just about dinner, it's about preparing for invisible guests. The villagers are moving with calm urgency. Children are sweeping the courtyards, women are arranging offerings, and old men are tying red cords above doorways. You're gently ushered toward the household altar, a simple raised platform bearing ancestral tablets, flickering oil lamps, and neatly stacked dishes of food. Every item has its purpose. The sticky rice is for sustenance, the pears for sweetness in the afterlife, and the duck eggs. Well, no one quite agrees why the eggs are there, but they always are. This is where things get really interesting. You'd think a spirit wouldn't be picky, but oh no, some were believed to have particular tastes. Sweet over sour, round over square, steamed not fried. If you got it wrong, expect a broken bowl or an unexpected stomach ache. One particularly weird practice involved smearing animal blood near thresholds, not for the ghosts, but to ward off less polite spirits who weren't invited. Archaeologists still debate whether this was more of a folk belief or a holdover from even earlier shamanic traditions. You help place the offerings, trying not to knock over a tiny porcelain wine cup. And then comes the burning. Stacks of paper spirit money are fed to the flames, along with paper cutouts of robes, hats, and occasionally, a full-sized paper horse. It's a postal service for the underworld, a blazing, papery FedEx straight to Grandma's ghostly address. The crackling fire smells of pine and ink, and the night air pulses with the warmth of collective memory. Every now and then, someone mutters a prayer, soft, rhythmic words barely audible over the crickets. You don't understand all the phrases, but the intention is clear: we remember you. We hope you're full. Please don't knock anything over. It's touching, in a low-key, sleepy sort of way. Even the skeptics among the villagers don't skip this part. Why take the chance, right? There's also a bit of social theater at play. The more elaborate your offerings, the more respect you're seen to show, to the ancestors, yes, but also to your living neighbors. You try not to judge the neighbor who's parading out a roast piglet and a stack of lotus pastries taller than her toddler. Maybe her ancestors just have big appetites. This blending of duty, affection, fear, and a tiny bit of showing off is what gives the Ghost Festival its charm. It's not solemn, exactly, but it's definitely not careless. Every offering, every whisper, and every smoldering paper dress is part of a tender, time-worn choreography, one you're now performing with sticky fingers and a faint, amused smile. The night deepens, and with it, the rituals grow stranger, not darker, just more theatrical. You're sitting near the village square now, where a makeshift stage of wooden planks and silk curtains has appeared, almost like magic. The performers arrive in procession, their faces painted in pale greens and reds, with robes that shimmer like fish scales in the firelight. This isn't just any play, it's ghost opera. You'd probably expect a ghost story to be scary, but these performances are more melodramatic than monstrous. Tonight's script: a nobleman who dies in battle, forgets he's dead, returns to haunt his horse, then falls in love with a tree spirit. It's heartfelt, over the top, and oddly soothing. The actors belt out their lines in high, nasal tones while cymbals crash at key moments, startling at first, then rhythmically hypnotic. Interestingly, these performances aren't meant for you, or even the villagers. They're for the dead. The front rows of bamboo chairs are deliberately left empty, a VIP section for the spirits. You glance nervously at the open seats and wonder, half seriously, who might be watching. That wind brushing your cheek could be Grandma, or maybe that ghost horse from Act 1. One curious aspect of these rituals is how they serve as both entertainment and protection. The music, the masks, the sheer volume, all were thought to distract and placate wandering souls. Archaeologists still debate whether ghost opera evolved from earlier ancestor song traditions or local storytelling customs that just happened to include a few undead characters. Either way, it's catchy. You find yourself humming a weird little tune about tea in the underworld, even though you're not sure what it means. As the final act crescendos, someone lights a giant paper lantern shaped like a lotus. It drifts upward, wobbling a little in the humid air before catching a breeze and soaring into the sky. You and the others follow its glow with wide, tired eyes. It's not just beautiful, it's a kind of message. We see you, we remember. Please don't mess with the plumbing. Backstage, someone's aunt is already packing up leftover rice cakes, muttering that ghosts don't eat carbs. Children yawn, clutching little sachets of herbs sewn to protect them from bad dreams. You're beginning to understand the rhythm of the night: food, fire, music, memory. It's equal parts superstition and sincerity, and somehow, it works. As you shuffle back to your sleeping mat, the music fades into insect chatter, and the square empties slowly, like a dream receding at dawn. No one says, "Good night," they just nod. After all, it's not just the living who've been entertained. Back at your host family's home, things are quieter now, not silent, but thick with that deep night hush when even the roosters pause. You lie back on a woven mat, staring up at a slanted wooden ceiling, while the lanterns outside sway gently in the wind. The Ghost Festival may center around food and theater, but it's what happens after the crowd disperses that really tickles your curiosity. You hear the rustle of silk as someone tiptoes past with a small plate. Turns out, not all offerings are public. Some are left in secret, under the stairs, behind the water jar, at the base of an old tree. These quiet offerings are meant for forgotten spirits, ghosts without names or family. The ancient Chinese called them hungry ghosts, and they were believed to wander endlessly, longing for a taste of kindness. Honestly, you feel for them. Imagine dying and still being left off the guest list. One particularly odd custom you witness is the whispering of names into clay jars. The idea is to give identity, however briefly, to a spirit who might not have one. Then, the jar is sealed with wax and buried beneath the floorboards. Archaeologists still debate whether this was an act of reverence, guilt, or just a spiritual version of pest control. Either way, it's surprisingly sweet. You find yourself wanting to whisper something too, just a little hello to the void. And then there's the midnight meal. Not for the dead, this time, for the living who stayed up. It's simple: pickled turnip, warm rice, and a salty egg. Comfort food, ancient style. One of the elders slurps loudly and says, through a mouthful, "Ghosts aren't the only ones who get hungry at night." Fair point. You accept a bowl with gratitude, savoring the starchy calm that only late-night carbs can bring. Outside, someone is softly drumming. Not a performance, just a heartbeat rhythm, slow and deliberate. This was believed to help guide lost spirits home, or at least encourage them to move along. You imagine one floating by, confused but polite, tipping an invisible hat as it continues on. The sky is clear now, stars poking through like tiny holes in a paper screen. You pick out the Big Dipper, which, in Chinese cosmology, is linked to the movement of souls. There's something comforting in that, a sense of pattern, even in death. The cosmos has its own map, and everyone eventually follows it, no matter how many detours. Tonight, you're not just a guest in someone's house, you're part of a continuum. The Ghost Festival isn't about scaring you. It's about reminding you that memory, even when passed through incense and ghost opera, is a kind of love. Weird, smoky, slightly salty love. Tonight, you're not just a guest in someone's house, you're part of a continuum. The Ghost Festival isn't about scaring you. It's about reminding you that memory, even when passed through incense and ghost opera, is a kind of love. Weird, smoky, slightly salty love. You wake up groggy but unbothered, to the sound of sweeping. Someone, probably the grandmother, is already out front with a straw broom, shooing away last night's ghosts as casually as she'd brush off dry leaves. In this town, even hauntings are domestic chores. Today's mood is quieter. The festival's peak was last night, but the next morning has its own set of rituals, softer and less theatrical. First up, the incense walk. It's not exactly a parade, more like a gentle meander through the village, holding sticks of incense and muttering under your breath. Not prayers exactly, more like polite reminders. Time to go home now, Auntie Lynn, or thanks for not knocking over the rice jar, Grandpa. The air is thick with sweet smoke, curling through trees and curling around eaves like lazy cats. You're handed a stick and told to walk eastward, because apparently that's the spiritual exit, the ancient version of an airport gate. You picture spirits in long lines, holding ghostly luggage, waiting for boarding group number 7. Someone sneezes dramatically. That's part of the ritual, too. A sneeze is thought to scare off any lingering energy trying to hitch a ride in your sinuses. Ancient medicine meets folk theater, basically. As you pass a neighbor's home, you see a peculiar sight: a line of paper boats floating down a small canal. Each one holds a tiny figurine, maybe a rabbit, maybe a person, maybe a hybrid of both. The symbolism varies depending on which elder you ask. Some say they carry messages to the underworld. Others claim they're vehicles for stubborn spirits who overstayed their welcome. You ask if you can fold one. You're handed a piece of pale green paper and gently corrected when your rabbit starts looking suspiciously like a sock. Folding origami in 500 BCE was clearly not your calling. Archaeologists still debate whether these boats were purely symbolic or whether people genuinely believed spirits could ride them like Uber canoes. But one thing's for sure, there's something tender about watching them drift away, carrying silence and memory out to wherever the water goes. Later, back at the family house, breakfast is served. It's porridge today, thick, bland, and served with preserved plums so sour they make your eyeballs blink. You're told this meal is intentionally plain. After all the sweet cakes and ghost candy, the body needs to return to balance. Even the dead get indigestion, says your host, tapping their belly with a wink. You sit with the family, legs tucked under you, watching the last of the smoke trails rise from burnt joss paper. You're tired, but in that pleasant way, like your soul has been massaged with old stories and just the right amount of superstition. A chicken wanders in and poops dramatically near the threshold. Everyone laughs. The ghosts, presumably, do not. You realize something funny. Even with all the ceremony, all the incense and whispering and paper folding, no one here seems afraid of death. They respect it, joke with it, invite it over for snacks and then politely send it on its way. There's wisdom in that, you think. A kind of peace. You sip your tea, which tastes faintly like flowers and maybe ashes. Hard to tell. Either way, it's oddly soothing. Outside, the last of the incense curls away into nothing. Later that afternoon, you find yourself tagging along with a young boy named Ping and his grandma. They're heading to the ancestral tombs just outside the village, not for a ritual this time, but for a bit of tidying up. Ghost festival or not, someone's got to sweep the cobwebs and reattach the loose stone tiles. The walk is hot and dusty. Cicadas scream in the trees like little broken kettles, and the path winds past rice paddies where herons stalk with imperial indifference. Ping carries a tiny broom made from millet stalks. You're given a jar of sesame oil and told to rub it into the tomb's carved nameplate, to make the names shine brighter. That's the thing about ancient traditions. They rarely separate the sacred from the household chore. The tombs themselves are surprisingly cheerful looking. Round, grassy mounds like sleepy turtles huddled together. A few have faded flags or half-melted candle stubs. One even sports a woven hat, presumably for a stylish ancestor with no tolerance for sun. You help brush off dirt and offer a little bow, just in case anyone's watching. As you scrub, Ping explains that each tomb has its own personality. This one, very picky about offerings. That one, used to like wine, but not the red kind. You nod solemnly, because honestly, who are you to argue? Archaeologists still debate whether these characterizations were passed down through oral tradition or just made up on the spot by grandkids looking to spice up tomb duty. Then comes the incense ritual. But this time, it's silent. Not a word. Ping's grandma lights 3 sticks, bows, and sticks them in a cracked jar full of old rice. The smoke rises straight, no wind. That's supposed to mean the spirit is content. When it curls sideways, they say the ghost is restless. Yours goes sideways. Ping leans in and whispers, "You probably put too much oil." Right. Blame the sesame. Afterwards, Ping offers you a chunk of sugarcane. You chew in companionable silence, spitting the fibers into a hole someone's dog probably dug. It's sticky, earthy, and oddly spiritual. There's something deeply grounding about standing over a centuries-old grave, sugar juice dribbling down your chin, talking about the ghost who used to steal slippers. As the sun starts to lower, you all gather on a stone bench near the entrance of the graveyard. It's peaceful here. The trees cast long, lazy shadows, and birds swoop low like paper kites. Ping's grandma tells a ghost story, not the jump scare kind, but a meandering tale about a ghost who just wanted to dance and ended up as a village legend with surprisingly good moves. You laugh, then catch yourself. Can you laugh in a graveyard? Apparently yes. Especially here. The story ends with a chuckle and a sigh. They don't make ghosts like they used to, she says, patting the tomb fondly like an old friend. And just like that, the ritual's over. No big climax, no dramatic wind gust, just 3 humans, a bunch of sleepy ancestors, and a sky turning the color of warm soy sauce. As you walk back to the village, fireflies blink lazily in the trees. You realize that honoring the dead isn't about grand gestures. It's about sugarcane and oil, whispered names and shared benches. It's about keeping the dead in the loop, not worshipping, not fearing, just remembering. You wake up the next morning to the unmistakable sound of chickens arguing. Loud, squabbling, like tiny feathered politicians in a town hall debate. The house smells like boiled peanuts and something vaguely herbal, probably another one of Grandma's potions meant to clear the ghosts out of your spleen. Today is for burning, not in a dark way, more in the paper effigy bonanza way. The family is prepping for the send-off, one last blaze of ghostly generosity before the hungry spirits make their exit for the year. You wander outside to see what's on the offering list. There's a small paper sedan chair, a stack of gold foil, money, bills, a paper cell phone that looks suspiciously like a very early Nokia, and, oddly, a paper pet cat. She missed her old cat, someone explains with a shrug. You're handed a paper dumpling to toss into the fire. It's shockingly detailed, pleats and all. You resist the urge to bite it. Everyone lines up by the designated burn pit, a shallow brick circle at the edge of the courtyard. The air is already thick with the metallic tang of incense and scorched glue. One by one, the offerings are set alight. The sedan chair goes up dramatically, curling into delicate ash like a disappearing magician's trick. The money crackles and flutters, then vanishes. The cat burns slowly, tail last, as if reluctant to leave. Archaeologists still debate whether these burn offerings were meant as literal gifts or symbolic gestures. But everyone here treats it like a care package for the afterlife. You can't help but imagine a long line of ghosts on the other side, sorting through their loot. One elderly spirit examines her new slippers. Another pokes the paper cat, unimpressed. One excited ghost tries to swipe someone else's iPhone 0.5. Someone mentions that in some parts of ancient China, people used to burn entire miniature houses, complete with furniture and tiny fake servants. You glance at the modest sedan chair and wonder if your ghost thinks you're cheap. Just to be safe, you sneak in an extra paper cookie. There's an odd calm to the fire. The flames dance gently, not angrily. People watch in silence, sipping tea or fanning themselves with palm leaves. No one's in a rush. No one's crying. It feels like the ghost version of a train station goodbye. A few waves, a few nods, maybe a tear or two, but mostly a quiet understanding. They'll be back next year. Ghosts are reliable like that. As the last ember fades, someone sprinkles water over the pit. Not too much, just enough to tell the fire it's time to rest. Then everyone claps softly. Not applause, more like a polite closing ceremony. You join in, palms meeting with a soft THWIP, and the sound somehow feels older than the bricks beneath your feet. On the way back in, Grandma gives you a red thread to tie around your wrist. Keeps the sticky ones off, she says with a wink. Sticky ones. You don't ask. Some things are best left vague. Dinner that night is less festive, more grounding. Lots of steamed greens and pickled radish, as if to say, okay, party's over. Let's get back to regular digestion. You sit with the family, watching the stars appear. Someone starts humming a tune that might be centuries old. Or maybe they made it up just now. In this place, it's hard to tell. Time feels bendy. You think about all the paper that turned into ash today, all the care and craft folded into something that was always meant to disappear. It's oddly beautiful, fleeting, sure, but meaningful in its own smoky way. It's your last evening in the village, and the air carries that weighty stillness that comes after a festival, like the quiet yawn of a house after guests have gone. But there's one final tradition you haven't seen yet, the lantern walk. After dinner, everyone gathers in the square with lanterns made of bamboo, silk, and wishes. They're not just decorations. Each one is said to carry a final message to the ghosts, part thank you note, part gentle nudge back to the spirit realm. You're handed a small one, painted with a slightly wobbly crane and the words "Safe Travels" in brushstroke characters. It's got a little loop of twine, and when lit, it glows like a tiny sun with stage fright. The procession begins with little fuss. No speeches, no announcements, just the soft shuffling of straw sandals and the whispery flicker of flames. You follow along a path that winds past the fields and toward the river. The glow of dozens of lanterns bobbing gently ahead looks like a slow-moving constellation that forgot which way the sky was. Kids whisper ghost jokes. Old men reminisce about past festivals where the lanterns caught fire too soon, or the wind was too stubborn. One woman claims her cousin once saw a lantern float upward, against gravity, because the ghost liked it too much to let go. Archaeologists still debate whether these river lanterns were originally meant for navigation, tribute, or symbolic release, but locals just shrug and say, it's for closure. At the riverbank, everyone lines up and releases their lanterns one by one onto the water. Yours floats a little crooked, then straightens out as if correcting its posture. It drifts slowly into the current, joining the others in a shimmering parade of orange and gold. The river carries them with unhurried grace. They bob, swirl, and sometimes spin, but always move forward. It's hypnotic, a little sad, a little silly, but mostly peaceful. A girl next to you points at one particularly stubborn lantern that keeps getting caught in the reeds. Maybe the ghost didn't get the message, she giggles. Her mom hushes her, but not too sternly. You smile, imagining some fussy ancestor tapping their foot, refusing to leave until they get a second round of dumplings. Farther down the bank, someone plays a flute, thin and reedy, like a bamboo stick trying to sing. The tune is ancient, or maybe just feels that way. It weaves through the air, curling around your ears like warm mist. You sit by the riverbank long after most people have headed back. The lanterns are distant now, small dots of light fading into the horizon. You imagine them reaching the ghost world, drifting into spectral docks, greeted by the ancestors with warm tea and surprised expressions. "Oh, you remembered," they'd say, patting their tiny paper cat and checking their new phone for spectral messages. As the last few lanterns vanish from view, you finally stand. Your legs have that riverbank stiffness, half asleep, a little damp from the grass. You take one last look at the water, now just a dark ribbon under a paler sky. Back in the village, everything's already half packed away. The tables are stacked. The incense pots are empty. A rooster has claimed your seat from earlier, staring at you like it's been guarding your ghost all night. You crawl under your woven mat that night feeling strange but settled. Like something important just happened, and you were lucky enough to see it. You don't know exactly what the ghosts felt about all this, or if they even received the cat phone money combo. But you do know that the living needed it, needed the remembering, the laughing, the burning, the walking, and maybe, just maybe, the ghosts needed it too. The next morning begins not with a rooster, but with a breeze. It curls through the open window like a cat that's not sure it's invited, gently ruffling the fabric of the sleeping mat. The village is quiet, but not empty, more like it's exhaling after a long-held breath. You stretch, your arms pop, your knees crack in protest, as if to say, no more ghost festivals, please. But your heart disagrees. It already misses the weird comfort of incense and paper cats. Outside, life returns to normal, or at least a version of it. People sweep, chickens peck like unpaid interns, and the elderly gather under a tree to gossip about spirits and grandkids in equal measure. A new topic floats through the conversation like steam off rice, whose dreams were visited. Mine came, a woman says, eyes twinkling. He was just standing there, wearing those hideous shoes from his funeral. I told him to change. He smiled and disappeared. Dream visitation is a prized post-festival experience. It's like a Yelp review from the beyond, a thumbs up that you did the rituals right. Archaeologists still debate whether these dreams were genuine spiritual contact or the mind's way of sorting grief. The villagers, they don't care what the scholars say. If your aunt shows up in a dream and tells you to water the plants, You water the plants. You, unfortunately, got no dream ghost. Not even a whisper. Maybe your paper offering wasn't stylish enough. Or maybe your ghost just overslept. Later, you help sweep the ashes from the burn pit. The charred remains of sedan chairs, phones, and dumplings crunch underfoot like oddly sacred confetti. One uncle jokes that next year, they should burn a paper scooter, more efficient in the afterlife. Everyone laughs. Someone else suggests a paper hotpot. As the ashes are bagged and scattered into the wind, you catch a few in your hair. Grandma says that's good luck. You decide to believe her. Back at the house, things are shifting. Banners are being taken down. Ritual objects are carefully packed away. Even the incense pots get a rinse and dry like VIP teacups. You help with the folding, the sweeping, the sorting. There's something satisfying about the rhythm of it, like resetting the stage after a very peculiar, very smoky play. A small boy runs by, dragging a stick and shouting, "Boo!" at a tree. Ghosts might be gone, but the idea of them lingers, and maybe that's the point. In ancient China, the ghost month wasn't about fear, really. It was about remembering, feeding, listening, making space for the uncomfortable silence of the past to sit down at your dinner table. You find yourself thinking about that silence. About the ghosts that didn't visit. About the people who never got their paper dumplings. About the old stories told over tea and the ones nobody tells anymore. There's a myth, only whispered in some dusty corner of Sichuan, that if a ghost is forgotten completely, it becomes a loiterer, wandering festivals without name or offering, eating only what falls on the ground. They say loiterers are the reason you always burn a little extra, just in case. As you pack up the last paper scraps, you slip a tiny gold foil biscuit into your pocket. Maybe next year, you'll burn it for a loiterer. In the afternoon, the temple bells ring one last time for the month. A final gong to tell the spirits, all right, party's over. Time to float back. You don't see any actual ghosts leaving, but the air feels lighter. Maybe that's enough. You spend the rest of the day doing absolutely nothing. Sitting, watching the rice paddies sway, eating a plum and trying to not think too hard. It's a luxury that only follows ritual, the kind of peace that has to be earned with incense, chicken, and a little fire. And as evening falls, you start to feel it, that gentle shift back into the world of the living. One foot still in folklore, but the other stepping quietly onto solid ground. You wake the next day to the soft percussion of rain tapping the roof like a lazy drummer with too much tea. It's the kind of drizzle that smells like old stone and sleepy dirt, and the whole village seems to move more slowly under it. Today is what people call closing the gate. The last, quiet ritual, less flashy than burning sedan chairs, but more intimate in its own way. You're invited to join a small group heading up a hill behind the village. It's not a pilgrimage, not really. Just a walk to a weathered little shrine dedicated to the doorkeeper spirit, the one who supposedly manages the border between the living and the dead. Think of him as a celestial bouncer in a rice straw hat. You climb with the others, the path soft and mossy underfoot. Birds call out in the distance, but even they sound like they're whispering. The sky is the color of steamed taro, gray, gentle, a little bland. At the top, the shrine looks barely bigger than a garden shed, but it hums with the kind of sacred tension you can't quite explain. Inside, there's a squat stone idol wearing years of moss and bird poop like a weird badge of honor. Someone's balanced a half-eaten rice cake in its lap, a final snack for the road, perhaps. The ritual here is simple. Light a stick of incense, bow 3 times, and whisper something you didn't say before. Something for a ghost you forgot. Or one you loved. Or maybe just something you're ready to let go of. You do it. You're not sure why, but you do. You whisper something small, not a secret, just a fragment of feeling, and the smoke curls upward like it's carrying your words on a lazy air current. A chicken appears out of nowhere and pecks the rice cake. Everyone pretends not to laugh. There's no dramatic thunderclap, no flash of spirit light, just the soft hush of the rain and the warmth of incense against your fingers. One elder, squinting at the shrine, mutters, "Gates closed." Someone else nods solemnly. You nod too, even though you're not entirely sure what just happened. But something does feel different, as if the door between worlds has gently, politely clicked shut. You walk back down the hill, shoes squelching in the mud. It's peaceful, in that way that only comes after saying goodbye the right way. Back in the village, life resumes its pre-ghost rhythm. Kids are back to chasing frogs. Laundry flaps lazily on lines. One woman yells at her husband for forgetting to salt the preserved plums. Harmony restored. At lunch, someone offers you a leftover bun in the shape of a turtle. It's rock hard and questionably green. Festival souvenir, they joke. You eat it anyway. It tastes like sawdust and sentimentality. That afternoon, you wander to the market. Everything's louder now, more alive. The ghosts are gone, but the people are definitely back. Vendors yell, dogs bark. There's a man selling firecrackers even though it's absolutely not the season. He gives you a wink and slips one into your pocket, for luck. Or mischief. Same thing. Later, sitting by the rice fields with your feet in the mud, you realize something. The festival didn't teach you what to believe. It didn't solve any great mystery. It didn't offer proof of ghosts, or afterlives, or cosmic justice. But it gave you something quieter, the chance to imagine, to remember, to participate in a strange, sticky, chicken-filled conversation between generations. And maybe that's the point. The ghosts didn't need you to believe in them. They just needed you to make room at the table, to burn him a paper phone, to walk with a lantern, to say hello and goodbye in the same breath. And now, as the sky clears slightly and a single beam of gold light slips through the clouds like a misplaced noodle, you feel it, closure. Also, hunger, because ghost festivals are long, and you didn't eat enough dumplings. The festival's passed, the smoke has cleared, and yet, the ghosts linger. Not as floating specters or eerie moans in the bamboo, but as memories folded neatly into the ordinary fabric of daily life. You're back in the family home, which somehow feels both bigger and emptier now. The table has been cleared of offerings, the incense holders washed and returned to their shelves, and the paper ash swept into clay pots to be scattered at the river later. Still, everything smells faintly of sandalwood and duck fat, the two dominant scents of Ghost Month. You take a slow walk through the village, just as the sun begins to lower like a sleepy coin slipping under a blanket. Around you, life looks normal, too normal, but you start to notice small traces that say otherwise. Tiny paper shoes stuck in a bush. A candle stub still burning quietly in front of someone's door. A leftover offering of peaches looking way too suspiciously untouched. You pass by the old tailor's house. He's sitting cross-legged outside, darning what looks like a ghost sock. When you ask what he's doing, he just shrugs and mutters, just in case someone comes back cold-footed. And really, that's what this time of year is about. Not chasing ghosts, but making sure they're comfortable, even after they've gone. Hospitality, even beyond death. It's absurdly touching, and absurdly absurd. You stop by the local shrine. A woman in her 60s is there, lighting a final stick of incense. "For my dad," she says without looking at you. "He always loved red bean buns. I burned him 6. Hope the afterlife has soy milk." You nod solemnly, as if this makes perfect, rational sense. Which, here, it kind of does. Archaeologists still debate whether the elaborate food offerings were ever actually believed to nourish ghosts, or were symbolic gestures to reinforce community memory. But that debate misses the point. You're not feeding a ghost to keep it alive, you're feeding it so you don't forget who it was. You pass the town storyteller next. He's sitting with a few kids under a tree, weaving a tale about a ghost who came back just to finish their embroidery. The kids are riveted. One of them interrupts to ask, "What if the ghost can't find their way home?" The old man just smiles. Then someone lights a lantern. Always. You head home, wondering what story will be told about you one day, and whether someone will burn you a paper coffee mug or at least a nice pair of slippers. At dinner, your family talks about the coming harvest. Auntie mentions a cousin who might visit next month. Grandpa says he saw your great-uncle in a dream last night, wearing that stupid vest again. No one thinks this is weird. You've all just spent an entire lunar month building a bridge between the living and the dead. Dream fashion commentary is the least strange part of it. And as you eat your rice, something shifts. The ghost month isn't a spectacle anymore. It's part of you now. Not spooky, not even sad, just real. Like how a scar becomes part of your skin. Or how a memory stops hurting and starts warming you instead. You go to bed with a full belly and fingers that still smell like burnt paper and sesame oil. There's a crumpled joss stick on your windowsill, left over from the first night of the festival. You don't throw it away. Instead, you lie back, stare at the ceiling, and wonder which spirit is still lingering in the corner, not to haunt you, but maybe to borrow your dreams for just one more night. You dream lightly that night, nothing vivid, just a long, lazy drift through old temples and flickering lanterns. It's the kind of sleep that leaves you feeling like a folded bedsheet, soft around the edges. When you wake, the village is already humming again. Kids are back to sword fighting with bamboo sticks. Someone's hanging laundry shaped like a phoenix costume, leftover from the street parade. The dumpling vendor is yelling that his prices are back to normal, which is a lie, but a comforting one. You stroll down to the riverbank, where the last ritual takes place, releasing the ashes. This isn't a formal procession, more like a quiet, barefoot goodbye. Families arrive with little cloth bundles, clay jars, or just a handful of gray dust in their palms. You cup your own ashes, the ones from the lanterns, the paper houses, the pretend gold bars, and tip them gently into the water. They swirl for a second, then vanish like tea leaves in soup. Next to you, a child asks his mother, if the ghosts like the festival, will they come back next year? His mother nods. If they're polite, you both smile. This is one of those moments historians don't always capture. The tenderness, the humor, the utter absurdity of mourning through snacks and cardboard BMWs. Scholars still debate the origin of the ghost festival, whether it evolved from older Buddhist Ulambana traditions, or if it stems deeper from native Chinese ancestor worship. Either way, it's always been about balance, honoring the past without letting it drag you under. Nearby, a fisherman mutters that the carp are getting fat on rice cake crumbs. He doesn't sound angry, just impressed. You wonder what ghost food tastes like to fish. Probably very emotional. As you walk back to the village, a rooster runs past you wearing a paper hat. No one reacts. At this point, normalcy has become a sliding scale. You stop at the edge of the square, watching as the final lanterns are packed away, their red silk crinkled and sun-bleached. A girl tugs on her mother's sleeve and whispers, "The ghosts were nice this year." Her mother just says, "We were nice first." That sticks with you. You think about how much effort went into kindness, not out of fear, but habit. Respect, hope. You think about all the things people built just to burn. All the words they whispered that would never be written. All the grief turned into folded paper, sweet rice, and laughing parades. And you feel lucky, not just to have witnessed it, but to have played a part. You weren't just watching history, you were wearing it, sweating in it, eating snacks in it, singing with strangers at midnight because ghosts might be listening. A dog lies across the path, belly up. You step over it like it's part of the pavement. It probably is. As the village fades into the background, you keep walking, hands in your sleeves, feeling the weight of everything you've carried, and everything you've let go. You hum a little song you heard during the lantern ceremony. Something about crossing bridges and cooking for the dead. You don't remember the words, but your feet remember the rhythm. The month of ghosts is over, but the stories remain. It's late now, and the road is quiet again. Just the soft tap of your sandals against stone and the occasional chirp of something feathered in the underbrush. The night no longer feels haunted, just full. As you walk the final stretch toward your home, the moon hangs low and yellow like an old lantern, casting fuzzy silver shadows across the ground. You half expect one of them to stand up and ask for another peach bun. You pause at the door. Your house smells like ginger and smoke, like memories steeped in tea. There's a single lantern still lit on the threshold, not for any ceremony, just because someone forgot to blow it out. Or maybe didn't forget. Maybe it's just there, glowing quietly, in case a ghost gets lost on the way back to wherever ghosts go. You step inside and everything is as it was. The bamboo mat, the half-folded laundry, the squeaky floorboard that betrays your every movement. But somehow, the room feels bigger, lighter, like it remembers the incense and the offerings and all the footsteps that came and went during the past few weeks. You sit by the low table and sip some warm water. Not tea, just water, enough taste to remind you that you're still here, and that not everything has to be sweet or ceremonial. Outside, someone lights a final firecracker, a single pop, like punctuation on the end of a long, meandering sentence. Your fingers idly trace the edge of the table, feeling the nicks and grooves left by generations before you. You think of your grandmother, who always burned paper raisins for her late husband because even ghosts get stubble. You think of your cousin who left his math homework out as an offering, just in case his grandpa wanted to help from beyond. This month wasn't just about the dead. It was about the ridiculous, persistent love the living carry for them. The kind of love that folds into paper, sets on fire, and sails downriver with a prayer. Archaeologists still debate whether these rituals were driven more by fear or reverence. But standing here, surrounded by ordinary objects imbued with memory, it's hard to believe it was ever just fear. You look at your reflection in the window, your face dimly lit by the soft flame behind you. You smile. You survived Ghost Month. You even thrived in it. And, if anything, it made you gentler, stranger, a little more in tune with invisible things. You lie down for bed. The mat creaks. The moon slips lower. Somewhere outside, a stray dog barks once, then goes quiet, as if remembering its ghost season no longer. You don't bother saying good night to the spirits. They've already heard you say it every night this month. They're probably tired of it. You just exhale, let your eyelids drop, and trust that if anyone from the other side still needs something, they'll be polite enough to knock. And now, as the embers fade and your breath slows, you let go of the last flickers of paper flame and incense smoke. The village dims in your mind, its streets empty, its lanterns packed away in attic boxes, waiting patiently for another year, another moon. You feel your body settle deeper into the quiet, as if the ground itself were folding soft arms around you. There's no need to hold anything anymore, not the ghosts, not the names, not even the memories. Just rest, just warmth, just the low, cozy hum of a world that once burned offerings by candlelight and believed, truly believed, that kindness could carry across the veil. Your fingers go still, your breathing becomes a gentle rhythm, like a paperboat rocking on water. Let it drift, let everything drift. You are safe, you are remembered, you are held, not by ceremony, but by story, strange, tender, and timeless. Let the last ash settle, let the last lantern dim, let sleep take you slowly, like a boatman guiding you across a calm river, with no rush, no sound, no need to turn back. Sweet dreams.